I stare at another couple's wedding photo on Instagram, their genuine smiles mocking me from my phone screen. The soft glow of my LED lights barely illuminates my tiny Portland studio apartment, making everything feel smaller than it already is. 6 months ago, I thought asking Marcus for a break was the smartest decision I had ever made. I was 27, overwhelmed, and convinced I needed space to figure myself out. But sitting here alone while Pixelar Cat stares at me with those judgmental green eyes, I am starting to wonder if I figured out the wrong thing entirely. Before I dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. So drop your city in the comments below. If this story hits close to home, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about love loss and learning the hard way. Trust me, what I am about to share will make you think twice about taking the good things in your life for granted. Marcus Chen was not supposed to be the love of my life. We met 3 years ago through a dating app, both of us tired of the Portland dating scene and ready for something real. He was 29, a software engineer with kind brown eyes, and this adorable habit of overthinking everything. Our first date at Stumptown Coffee on Division Street lasted 6 hours because neither of us wanted it to end. What started as coffee dates turned into weekend hikes at Columbia River Gorge, where Marcus would point out different bird species, while I pretended to care about ornithology. He moved into my apartment after a year, bringing his methodical approach to everything from organizing our shared closet to splitting household chores with mathematical precision. Every Sunday, he cooked dinner while I graded papers for my marketing coordinator job, and we would watch old movies until we fell asleep on my secondhand couch. Marcus left sticky notes on my bathroom mirror with messages like, "You are going to crush that presentation," or "Do not forget you are amazing." Every Tuesday, he brought me lavender lattes from our neighborhood coffee shop because he remembered it was my favorite. He adopted Pixel with me when the gray tabby showed up on our fire escape during a rainstorm, and he never once complained about the litter box duty. But somewhere between the comfort and routine, I started feeling trapped. My friends Sophia and Daniel had just gotten engaged. Madison was pregnant with her second child, and everyone seemed to be moving forward, while I felt stuck in an endless loop of work-home Netflix sleep. The promotion I had been chasing finally came through demanding longer hours and more responsibility. But instead of feeling accomplished, I felt overwhelmed. Late at night, while Marcus slept peacefully beside me, I would stare at the ceiling, wondering if I was truly happy or just comfortable. Was this love? Or was I settling for something safe because it was easier than being alone? The quarter-life crisis hit me like a freight train, making me question everything from my career choice to whether I was ready for the commitment Marcus clearly wanted. The conversation that changed everything happened on a Friday night in February, just after Valentine's Day. Marcus was in our small kitchen, preparing something special, humming while he chopped vegetables for a stir-fry. He started talking about summer vacation plans, maybe visiting his family in California, possibly looking at bigger apartments together. The domesticity of it all suddenly felt suffocating. "Marcus, I think I need some space." I blurted out the words falling from my mouth before I could stop them. He dropped the wooden spoon he was holding, turning to face me with confusion clouding his features. "Space. What kind of space?" I tried to explain the restlessness. I felt the need to figure out who I was outside of our relationship. But every word sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Marcus suggested couples therapy weekend retreats, anything to work through whatever I was feeling. But I was not ready for solutions. I was barely ready to admit there was a problem. We agreed on a 2-month break with no contact. Marcus would stay with his brother Tyler, and I would have the apartment to myself. As he packed his clothes into the same duffel bag he had brought when he first moved in, I felt a mixture of relief and panic that I could not quite untangle. The first few weeks without Marcus felt like freedom. I could sleep until noon on weekends, eat cereal for dinner, and redecorate the bedroom without consulting anyone. I signed up for yoga classes, went to girls' nights with Maya and Jessica, and convinced myself this was exactly what I needed. But in quiet moments when I reached for my phone to text him about something funny I saw, or when I woke up to an empty bed, I felt the first stirrings of doubt about my decision. 2 months passed faster than I expected, and the novelty of independence began wearing thin. My yoga classes were filled with strangers who made small talk about juice cleanses and spiritual awakenings that felt forced and superficial. The promotion I had worked so hard for turned out to be mostly administrative tasks that drained my energy without providing any real satisfaction. My friends, initially supportive of my need for space, gradually returned to their own busy lives, leaving me with more solitude than I knew what to do with. I found myself missing the little things about Marcus that I had taken for granted. No one brought me coffee in the morning or asked about my day with genuine interest. Pixel seemed depressed too, spending most of his time sitting by the window where Marcus used to work on his laptop. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty, like a stage set waiting for the main character to return. When the 2 month mark arrived, I spent hours rehearsing what I would say to Marcus. I practiced in front of my bathroom mirror, the same mirror where his encouraging notes used to appear daily. I wanted to sound casual, but sincere, confident in my decision to reconnect, but not desperate. The first text message I sent after 8 weeks of silence was simple: "Hey Marcus, I have been thinking about us, and I would love to talk." His response came 12 hours later, which was unusual for someone who typically replied within minutes. "Hi Natalie, I think we should talk too. Can we meet this weekend?" The formal tone made my stomach clench with anxiety, but I attributed it to the awkwardness of reconnecting after so much time apart. When I called him the next day, something in his voice sounded different. There was a distance I had never heard before, a careful politeness that felt more appropriate for a business call than a conversation with someone who had shared my bed for over 2 years. In the background, I could swear I heard a woman's laughter, but when I asked about it, Marcus quickly deflected. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Just Tyler's girlfriend," he replied too quickly. "Listen, let me call you back later. I am in the middle of something." The conversation ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone with a growing sense of unease. Marcus was never evasive with me, never rushed our conversations, and the idea that he might be hiding something felt completely foreign to our relationship dynamic. Saturday could not come fast enough. I changed outfits 3 times, settling on the blue sweater Marcus always said brought out my eyes. I arrived at Stumptown Coffee 15 minutes early, choosing our usual table by the window where we had spent our first date talking until they nearly had to kick us out. Marcus walked in 20 minutes late, which was completely unlike his punctual nature. He looked different too. A fresh haircut, new cologne I did not recognize, and a confidence in his posture that seemed both familiar and strange. When he sat across from me, he barely made eye contact, focusing instead on the menu he knew by heart. "You look good," I said, hoping to bridge the awkwardness between us. "Thanks. You too." His smile was polite but did not reach his eyes. I launched into the apology I had rehearsed, explaining how the break had helped me realize what I was missing, how I wanted to work on us and move forward together. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. "Natalie, I need to tell you something." He finally said, his voice gentle but firm. "I have been seeing someone." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the breath from my lungs. "What?" "Her name is Amber. We met at Tyler's birthday party last month." He spoke carefully, as if he had rehearsed this conversation too. It was not planned, and I did not expect it to happen. I sat frozen, trying to process what he was saying. During my break, while I was discovering myself through yoga and girls' nights, Marcus had fallen for someone else. The woman's laughter I heard in the background suddenly made perfect sense. "She is a photographer." Marcus continued, his voice taking on a warmth it had lacked when talking to me. "Very passionate about her work, loves to travel and try new things. She has this energy that just draws you in." Every word felt like another nail in the coffin of our relationship. He was describing everything I was not: spontaneous, adventurous, free-spirited. All the qualities I had convinced myself I needed to develop during our break, she naturally possessed. "How long?" I managed to ask. "About a month. It started as friendship, but then—" He trailed off, looking genuinely conflicted. "You said you needed space to figure things out, so I thought I should do the same." The logic was sound, but it felt like betrayal anyway. In my mind, taking a break meant pressing pause on our relationship, not starting a new one. But Marcus had interpreted my request for space as permission to explore other options, and I could not fault him for that, without admitting my own selfishness. "I have moved out completely," he added quietly. "I am staying with Amber now." The finality of that statement settled over me like a heavy blanket. This was not a temporary thing or a rebound relationship. Marcus had moved on in every sense of the word, while I had spent 2 months playing house alone and convincing myself I was growing as a person. I fought back tears as we finished our coffee, both of us dancing around the elephant in the room. When we finally stood to leave, Marcus's parting words echoed in my mind long after he was gone. "I hope you find what you are looking for, Natalie." The walk home from the coffee shop felt endless, my legs moving automatically while my brain struggled to process what had just happened. Back in my apartment, I collapsed on the couch where Marcus and I had spent countless evenings, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to cry without restraint. Pixel jumped into my lap, purring softly, as if he understood that our little family had officially broken apart. The rational part of my mind knew I had no right to feel betrayed. I was the one who asked for space, who needed time to figure myself out, who pushed away someone who loved me unconditionally. But the emotional part of me felt completely blindsided by how quickly Marcus had moved on, and how thoroughly he seemed to have replaced me. I found myself obsessively searching for Amber on social media, despite knowing it would only make me feel worse. Her Instagram was a carefully curated collection of stunning photography from exotic locations around the world: mountain sunrises in Costa Rica, street art in Prague, aurora borealis in Iceland. She was 24, with the kind of effortless beauty that looked good in any lighting, and a smile that radiated the joy and spontaneity I had always felt I lacked. Scrolling through her posts, I saw Marcus appearing more and more frequently. They were hiking trails I had always been too tired to explore after work. They attended art gallery openings and live music shows that I had declined, because I preferred staying home with Netflix. Every photo showed them laughing, touching, sharing experiences that looked infinitely more exciting than the quiet domestic life Marcus and I had built together. The bitter irony was not lost on me. During our relationship, Marcus had suggested many of these same activities, and I had always found excuses to avoid them. Too tired from work, too busy with other commitments, maybe next weekend that never came. Now he was living the adventurous life he had always wanted, just with someone else who was eager to share it with him. I tried everything I could think of to win him back, starting with carefully crafted text messages about our shared memories. I wrote paragraphs about our first Christmas together, the time we got caught in a rainstorm during a hike, and laughed until our sides hurt the morning he surprised me with breakfast in bed, just because it was Tuesday. But Marcus's responses were polite and distant, acknowledging our past without any hint of wanting to recreate it. In a moment of desperation, I showed up at the gym where Marcus used to work out, hoping for a casual encounter that might remind him of what we had together. He was not there, and I felt foolish standing among the weight machines in my hastily chosen workout clothes, pretending to exercise while scanning every corner for a familiar face. I even contacted Tyler, hoping Marcus's brother might provide some insight into his emotional state or offer to put in a good word for me. Tyler was kind but uncomfortable, clearly caught between loyalty to his brother and sympathy for me. "He seems really happy, Natalie," was all he would say, and those 5 words told me everything I needed to know. My final attempt was a care package containing the items Marcus had left behind during his hurried move, along with a handwritten letter explaining how much I had learned about myself and how ready I was to be the partner he deserved. His response was swift and gentle, but absolutely final. Please do not make this harder than it already is. I hope you understand. The rejection stung more than our initial breakup, because this time I knew exactly what I was losing. During our break, Marcus had been a vague concept, a comfortable presence I thought would always be available when I was ready. Now, he was a fully realized person living a full life without me, and I had no claim on his time or attention. 3 weeks after our coffee shop conversation, I encountered Marcus and Amber at Powell's Books, the massive independent bookstore, where he and I used to spend entire Saturday afternoons browsing different sections before meeting up to compare our finds. They were in the travel section, Amber pointing excitedly at guidebooks for places I could not pronounce, while Marcus nodded along with genuine enthusiasm. Amber was even more beautiful in person, petite and vibrant, with an infectious energy that made everyone around her seem to stand a little straighter. When she laughed at something Marcus said, throwing her head back with complete abandon, I recognized the sound from that phone call weeks earlier. This was the woman who had captured Marcus's attention so completely that he forgot to miss me. I approached them before I could talk myself out of it, my heart pounding as Marcus looked up with surprise and something that might have been panic. "Natalie," he said carefully. "This is Amber. Amber, this is Natalie." Amber's smile was warm and genuine, without a trace of the awkwardness or hostility I might have expected. "Marcus has told me so much about you," she said, extending her hand for a shake. "You sound like an amazing person." Her kindness made everything worse because I could not even hate her. She was not the villain in my story. She was simply someone who said yes to all the adventures I had turned down, someone who appreciated Marcus's thoughtful nature without taking it for granted. Standing next to her, I felt like a black and white photograph next to a vibrant painting. Marcus was protective but respectful, keeping one hand on Amber's back while maintaining polite conversation with me. There was no anger in his voice when he spoke, no lingering resentment about our breakup, just the careful courtesy of someone who had moved on completely. When they finally excused themselves to continue their book browsing, I walked away feeling smaller and more insignificant than ever before. That night, I found myself on my bathroom floor, sobbing into a towel while Pixel watched from the doorway with concerned eyes. This was my rock-bottom moment, surrounded by the remnants of a life I had dismantled, without considering the consequences. My coworkers had started noticing my declining performance at work, and Maya staged an intervention after I canceled 3 consecutive plans to stay home and feel sorry for myself. "You asked for space and got exactly what you wanted," Maya said bluntly during our confrontation lunch. "Why are you surprised that he moved on instead of waiting around indefinitely for you to make up your mind?" Her words were harsh but accurate. I had expected Marcus to remain frozen in time, while I explored my independence, available for me to rediscover whenever I felt ready. The entitled nature of that assumption was starting to become clear, along with the painful recognition that I had taken his unwavering love for granted. Reviewing our relationship with the clarity that only comes from loss, I remembered all the times Marcus had hinted at wanting more commitment, while I deflected with jokes about being too young or too busy. He had wanted to meet my parents, talk about moving in together officially, maybe even discuss engagement timelines. I had always found reasons to postpone those conversations, convincing myself we had all the time in the world. The lowest point came during a particularly difficult day at work, when I locked myself in the office bathroom and cried until my eyes were too swollen to hide. My supervisor knocked on the door, asking if I needed to go home sick, and I realized my personal crisis was affecting every aspect of my life. That evening, I called Dr. Sarah Martinez, a therapist Maya had recommended months earlier, when I first started questioning my relationship. Dr. Martinez helped me understand the patterns behind my behavior, tracing my fear of commitment back to childhood experiences, watching my parents' messy divorce. I had spent so many years avoiding the kind of emotional vulnerability that led to that kind of pain that I had never learned how to appreciate stability when I found it. The revelation was both enlightening and devastating, because it meant I had sabotaged the best relationship of my life, due to fears I had not even acknowledged. Through weekly sessions, I began to untangle the difference between genuine incompatibility and self-sabotage disguised as personal growth. Marcus and I had been compatible in all the ways that mattered: shared values, complementary personalities, mutual respect and affection. My restlessness had not been about our relationship lacking something. It had been about my own inability to accept happiness without waiting for the other shoe to drop. The hardest part of therapy was accepting that understanding my mistakes did not give me the right to undo them. Marcus deserved happiness with someone who appreciated his consistency and kindness without needing to lose it first, to recognize its value. Learning to genuinely wish him well, rather than hoping for his relationship to fail, became a crucial part of my healing process. I deleted social media apps from my phone to remove the temptation of checking up on Marcus and Amber's relationship. Instead, I focused on actual self-improvement, rather than the performative version I had engaged in during our break. I took cooking classes to learn skills Marcus had handled in our relationship-planned solo weekend trips, to prove to myself that I could enjoy new experiences without needing someone else to initiate them. My neighbor Elena, a single mother with a remarkably positive outlook, despite raising 2 children on her own, became an unexpected source of wisdom and friendship. Through our conversations over morning coffee, I learned that being alone did not have to mean being lonely, and that self-sufficiency was different from the emotional independence I had confused with personal growth. Volunteering at the local animal shelter gave me perspective on problems larger than my own, while providing the sense of purpose my career advancement had failed to deliver. Working with abandoned animals taught me about resilience and the possibility of healing after trauma. I adopted a second cat, Leo, partly as a companion for Pixel, and partly as proof that I could make commitments and follow through on them. 6 months after our coffee shop conversation, I ran into Marcus at the grocery store while buying ingredients for a dinner party I was hosting for my book club. The encounter felt different this time. Natural rather than painful, like running into an old friend, rather than confronting a source of regret. "Natalie," he said with a genuine smile that lacked the careful politeness from our previous meetings. "How are you doing?" We chatted easily about my volunteer activities, his new position at a tech startup. He mentioned almost casually that he and Amber were engaged, showing me the ring he had helped design, featuring a stone she had collected during one of their hiking trips. For the first time since our breakup, I felt genuinely happy for him, rather than sorry for myself. "I am glad you found what you were looking for," Marcus said as we prepared to part ways, echoing his words from months earlier, but with warmth instead of resignation. "I am glad you did not wait for me to figure it out," I replied, meaning it completely. The conversation ended with a hug that felt like closure, a acknowledgement of what we had shared, without any lingering attachment to what might have been. Walking home with my groceries, I realized I felt lighter than I had in months, free from the weight of regret that had been crushing me. 1 year after asking for a break that ended my relationship, my life looked completely different, but felt authentically mine in a way it never had before. I had started dating again, approaching new relationships with the hard-won wisdom that came from learning to value consistency and commitment. David, a coworker who shared my love of books and weekend farmers markets, appreciated my honesty about past mistakes and my commitment to doing better. The difference in how I approached this new relationship was striking. Instead of panicking about routine, I found comfort in David's reliability. When he suggested meeting my parents or talking about future plans, I engaged in those conversations with curiosity rather than fear. I had learned the distinction between needing space and being afraid of intimacy, and that knowledge made all the difference. Looking back on my relationship with Marcus, I felt gratitude rather than regret for the lessons it taught me. Sometimes losing something good is the only way to learn what goodness actually looks like. I had spent 2 years taking Marcus's love for granted because I thought it would always be available, learning too late that unconditional love does not mean unlimited patience. The final lesson was perhaps the most important: knowing your own heart before you break someone else's. If someone loves you enough to wait while you figure yourself out, maybe the real question is not whether you need space, but whether you are brave enough to take up the space you deserve together, instead of running away from it in fear. Have you ever asked for a break in a relationship only to realize you made a mistake? Or maybe you have been on Marcus's side of the story, finding love after someone else let you go. Share your experiences in the comments below, because these stories remind us we are not alone in our struggles with love and commitment. If this story made you think about someone you might be taking for granted, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about relationships, growth, and second chances. And please share this with anyone who might need to hear it, because sometimes the most powerful lessons come from other people's mistakes. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you recognize the love in your own life before it walks away. Remember, the grass might look greener on the other side, but sometimes it is greenest where you water it.